Hello everyone, and welcome to the first Grid Talk of 2023. Really pleased that you can all make it. Obviously, session is being recorded if you join a bit late, but obviously really nice to welcome you all here, and delighted to obviously introduce you to Arjun and Kit from T&T, and a great lineup and agenda. We're going to be going through their story about how we've supported digital innovation and creativity with MethodGrid. For those, I can see quite a few sort of familiar faces that have joined the event, but for those that are new to Grid Talk, obviously it's us just giving back really and just sharing our sort of experiences and knowledge in terms of the topic of P3M connected assurance. For those that haven't been inducted into what connected assurance is, I'm going to explain that. I'll probably try and get through that very quickly for 5 minutes. Yeah, and we are planning on doing one Grid Talk every month for this year. So there'll be plenty more topics that come through. Just to signpost as well on that conversation, the next Grid Talk we have is similar time next month. And that's a really interesting case study for us. It's basically working with LACE partners, who are a P3M HR transformation consulting organization, and really fantastic, interesting insight into how we've helped them translate their client offerings into playbooks that their consultants can use to deliver that service consistently. So if that's of interest, please sign up. We'll be sending out the invites for that very shortly. Okay. So for formal introductions, so obviously, guys, I'm new. I think Dom has previously ran Grid Talks. He's in the background somewhere. But for me, I'm Pip Morpeth. I'm the head of professional services for MethodGrid, and really delighted to introduce you to Kit and Arjun. So Kit, Arjun, if you wouldn't mind just giving a small introduction, please.
Thank you, Pip. Yes, so my name's Kit Lister. I'm a senior consultant based within the digital team at Turner and Townsend. Currently on a secondment working with the SHQ telecoms team. So that's primarily where all my work with MethodGrid and implementing parts of MethodGrid within T&T. A little background about me.
Hi everyone, I'm Arjun. I work within SHQ Telecoms, and I've joined straight out of university. So ever since I was a graduate, I work primarily with data and reporting, but also supporting with commission management, improving efficiencies around the commission. And I've been at the forefront of trying to help introduce MethodGrid across the commission.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate, guys. Livestorm, you might not be used to it, but as we go through the session, there's a sort of questions tab right in the right hand side. So as we go through, guys, please ask questions that you might have. There'll be plenty of time for us to go through and questions. We do have quite a stacked agenda. And we do really, the whole premise of Grid Talk is that we give back, and it's an opportunity for us to collaborate, ask questions. I'm just going to try and give you a quick 5-minute explainer into what do we mean by the concept of connected assurance. And then I'm not going to steal your thunder, Kit. Obviously, Kit will take us through the T&T agenda, and once we've gone through that, there's a obviously fixed period time where we can focus on questions and answers. Okay. So in terms of connected assurance, before I sort of talk about what the actual concept is, I thought I'd explain the problem that we're trying to solve with connected assurance. And the main thing is we're trying to help organizations reduce the cost of poor quality that comes from inconsistent service and project delivery. It's probably one of the trickiest challenges as leadership in terms of how you actually systemically manage and reduce cost of poor quality. And the common pain symptoms that sort of evidenced through it are inconsistent feedback from clients about how we deliver projects. Teams and individuals find it really hard in terms of finding things, constantly repeating themselves. projects will demonstrate various controls that are implemented for time, cost, and quality, and also there's mixed performance on how they perform. Most commonly, constantly reinventing the wheel. This is, consultants reproducing assets that already existed. They just didn't know, couldn't find it. Right through to the experience of, we're constantly seeing the same mistakes repeated on projects and programs consistently. And then also, our staff, how long does it take them to be fully complement? It's taken me ages just to work out how to navigate around the organization, who to speak to. Now, all of those pain symptoms, we fundamentally believe that there's sort of four core blocks that contribute to that problem the most. I'm sure there's others, but these are the 4 core blocks that we feel have the most significant contribution to that pain. The first one is clarity of method, which is just, are we an organization that just relies on very good people? Or, we have a method, but it's scattered in various different assets across the company, or right up to the point where I've got a full-blown SharePoint, single source of the truth in terms of that's how we want to do things. The second contributing factor is, well, okay, is it a method that just sits on the shelf? And how easy is it for teams to be able to tailor it, right size it for a particular project? And then, what is our ability to be able to see and confidence that it's been applied consistently across all programs and projects? The third component is the underlying people capability. And that can get right back down to, what competencies, grades have we structured, what knowledge and education and learning assets have we actually integrated into our method, but also, how evidence is it, or what evidence have we got that the lessons we've gained from applying our method are actually getting fed back into it, and we're actually a learning organization, and we can see and demonstrate continuous improvement in that approach. Now, those 3 things are probably what's in your gift to control. And the 4th point is, how well is audit and assurance integrated into that approach? Commonly, they are a spare wheel, and not integrated into method, and it takes them a while to actually get integrated into delivery and become an effective way of making recommendations and supporting the team in delivery. So those are the 4 key points. And from a technology aspect, it doesn't really help us. We've got, the common landscape we see, there's knowledge management tools, there's project management tools, there's collaboration tools like Teams, there's the HR system and learning management where our training's held. And then, normally there's some kind of quality management database spreadsheet that's capturing non-conformance, non-compliance, or improvement recommendations. So that really is the synopsis of the problem that we're trying to solve with connected assurance. And for us, this very quickly, connected assurance, and for MethodGrid, this is our business. We've built a platform that supports you in trying to address that problem, which is, firstly, the platform allows you to build knowledge-rich playbooks that define how you deliver projects and services. It contains, your activities, your deliverables, but also integrate the ability to integrate, knowledge, learning, hints and tips, templates, so that you've got, a very well structured playbook in how you're going to deliver that project or how to deliver that service. But the real switch for us, and the sort of light bulb moment is what makes us different from it just sitting on the shelf, was the ability that you can clone playbooks so that you can use them on individual projects. You can tailor them, the teams can tailor them, right size them, add in, client deliverables, change stages, add in particular gates that the client may have. You might be doing grip or pace, being able to actually tailor that playbook specific for the project instance. And once you've got that capability, it's then been able to learn from that experience. So as you've cloned the playbook 6 or 7 times in Grid Enable, you can start to see improvements. You can say, well, we've got content that wasn't great. Consultants are still making mistakes. So what can we do about that? Or, we've got deliverables that we've missed, or we want to build a specific playbook for that particular solution so it's more consistent. And then by enabling this and having a single pane of glass that everyone can see what we're doing on that particular project just allows assurance and audit to be better integrated into that approach. They're not trailing around trying to find things. They've signed off on how we're going to deliver the project, and they're integrated into the playbook, and they can advise and provide guidance and focus on really where they should be in looking at how they improve the content of deliverables and quality. And obviously for our business, we built professional services that help our clients deliver those 4 components. But really, the fundamental point is we're just trying to help organizations establish a really effective 3 lines of defense. Most organizations will have a very good line 3, but actually where we see most gaps and where people and teams need most support is really helping understand line 1 and 2. With the theory being, if people have got clarity on method, we've got a good way of measuring and monitoring compliance, and we're supporting people through training, competency development, and they can access that learning in delivery, and audit are integrated into that process as well, we're going to significantly reduce the residual risk of projects being delivered inconsistently. Okay, so that's just a quick 5-minute, hopefully, of what Method Grid is about and what do we mean by the term of connected assurance. I'll just move on. So, Kit, over to you.
Thank you, Bert. Okay, so just a little bit of a background of what we'll kind of cover through our presentation on Method Grid within TNT. So something I'd just like to make aware to all. So TNT are using Method Grid in 2 areas in the organization. So the first part being TNT SHQ Telecoms, which is the cost center that myself and Arjun sit in. And it's also being used within our program advisory function as well. But primarily for this presentation, we're just going through the story of how we've used Method Grid and how it's helped us develop from a digital perspective within SHQ Telecoms. So what we'll do is we'll outline what SHQ Telecoms is about, who we work with and our clients, and then we'll go through why Method Grid was a good fit for us. So the search for a solution, starting with the issues that we were facing. We'll then move into our key piece within Method Grid, which is talking about our knowledge management and looking at our processes and toolkits that we could fit in within Method Grid. And then the last piece we'll be looking at the next steps for us. So what are we looking at going forward within Method Grid, and what are we excited for with the new functionality that is coming along? Okay, so I'm going to pass over to my colleague Arjun.
Hiya, thank you, Kit. So although in our business we work for multiple clients, I think the focus of what we'll do in this presentation is that we'll talk about our work with EE3 and MBNL, which is their joint venture company, and how we've used Method Grid to support our work in delivering for these clients. Since we took on the framework with MBNL in 2014, it's evolved to a stage where we work directly for all 3 of them as individual clients, all with different requirements, projects, and technical guidance on what they want to achieve. What we do is primarily we conduct design, health and safety and quality related construction consultancy services, where we essentially provide assurance to our clients that the work taking place in their supply chain with the rollout on the 4G and 5G network is as safe as possible and being conducted to the highest standard. This can involve, but not limited to, a mixture of document reviews across those 3 work streams, site inspections, and a lot of reporting on key findings from the audits, as well as statistics and performance metrics on the supply chain, and then in addition to that, senior strategy consulting. And I've tried to visualize that in the slide here. As you can see in our structural organizational chart, you can see that shows briefly how we're set up across our different work streams and really the sort of type of work that we do. Me and Kit personally, we sit in the PMO / data and reporting area, which is the fourth one from the left. Whereas, as I'll go into in a second, there's a lot of people who sit within this organisation chart. The scale of really what we do can't be understated, and it often does get overlooked. Currently, our team is, I think it's approximately 85 to 90 people, all working on over 100 of our clients' projects, all of which have a different scope of works, something that we have to work towards. And to try and represent this, the line graph, which I appreciate is very small, it's a representation of how much work we do weekly. So what it's saying really is that if you look at the x-axis, every point is 1 week, and across the y-axis is just how much work we've done. And at the very peak, in the third week, you can see there's around 2,100 reviews that we've logged just that week. So everyone is working tirelessly all day to try and get as many sites built and ready, and get the 5G network up and running as quick as we can. So it's extremely hectic in telecoms. Now, the issues we faced is, to boil it down to 3 key points, is knowledge management, continuing improvement, and organisation. Being that our team consists of a mixture of office-based people and site-based people, but most importantly, all spread out across the country. And I'll hand over to Kit to elaborate on that.
Okay, so the 3 main areas that we were looking at, or looking for a tool to help fix a few issues within our cost center, primarily stem from I think how the organization is set up and how it works, in the sense that Arjun said we're UK nationwide. We work both at our desks but also on site. So ranging from being sat in an office, open floor plan office, to being up on a hill next to a tower or antenna. So the working conditions for individuals is very different, but they still need access to the same information. That then leads into, or the primary issue with that is maintaining a constant knowledge management piece to it. So making sure that everyone within our team has access to the processes, the procedures, the standards, the documents that they require to complete their work. Now, as Arjun mentioned before, we have hundreds of projects. I say 100 projects with different scopes of work. So if you think about the amount of paperwork and I guess different scopes of work that are stored, it's quite a task to make sure that all of that is up to date, and everyone has good access to find the information they need. So where were we? Roll back a couple of years. So originally we were looking at our document stores and having them structured in a standard hosted server. And as you can imagine, and I think most organizations are, or used to be set up in this way, you would have your whole host of parent folders, then you'll have multiple subfolders, perhaps another layer of subfolders within that, and then you've got a bank of hundreds and hundreds of processes or PDFs and Word documents that are all linked into that. Now, we would assume the easiest way to find that document is to go to search, type in the document that you're after, and let's hope 15 to 20 minutes later you might have that document with you. Now, that's not an efficient way of working. So as most organizations, and as we went through as SHQ Telecoms, we were looking at significant digital change. How can we improve that? And as an organization, as a business, we were looking or implementing new ways of working, better set up with SharePoint, MS Teams being rolled out right across the organization. And MethodGrid as a tool seemed to be the ideal fit that would integrate with our primary issues on maintaining good knowledge management, but also fit into our other business tools like MS Teams, like SharePoint to kind of ensure a smooth transition, and still mitigate some of the issues that SharePoint, despite being cloud-based, still has. So SharePoint, again, you'll have your document store, but again, you're faced with the parent folder, subfolder, and all of that. So how method grid could be set up, and we'll go through this in a little bit more detail on our master service delivery model, but it allowed us to still embed the documentation and the PDFs that we had, but lay it out in a grid that everyone could have access to easily, but also within a couple of clicks have visibility of a process that didn't necessarily need to be downloaded to a laptop or opened within Adobe, etc. So for us, it was a major journey in terms of, one, improving how kind of digital tools and systems are being received within the business, but two, just making us work smarter, think smarter, and along with the toolkit, just have a better level of communication and kind of general management of all of our processes and tools going forward. So the main piece with our knowledge management was, I guess, how easily it could be linked with our MS team structure. As Arjun said, we've got 86 people within our commission currently. Within that, we have 7 or 8 teams, but making sure that the critical elements were linked to each of those teams so they could access the information, whether it be, again, up a hill next to an antenna in the middle of a city, or working in an office. Spoken about the issues, I think it would be good just to show what we've done and run through how we've kind of set up our processes within Method Grid. So hoping Arjun's going to be able to share screen now and
yes,
run through.
So yeah, like I mentioned, we'll move on to the part of the presentation where we'll try to demonstrate how we've used a couple of grids. I believe we have around 6 to show. And the first one is by far our biggest one, and probably I'd say one of the most important. We call it the Master Service Delivery Model, and it's actually the first exercise we conducted with Method Grid when we first met them. We essentially sat down and we mapped out all of the services that we undertake as a part of our framework with MBNL, EE, and 3. And it's designed to give you an overview of the process, the deliverables, who's an expert in that area. And it's really tailored for anyone to be able to go into and see the most up-to-date process, deliverables, experts. And it's especially helpful for new starters or people joining the commission who might not have any telecoms experience, such as when I joined. And it's, I'll flick now and keep talking, otherwise I'll find this. 1 second. So this is a sample of our grid. Unfortunately, we have had to take apart a lot of the names just due to sensitivity reasons. So we renamed them as Design Service 1, Design Service 2. But as you can see, the themes are relating to the team who conducts those services. So you have design team, health and safety team, etc. And then across the stages at the top, we have the different stages of a telecom site being built. So what this does is it really helps us map out and visualize just where our services fit during the life cycle of constructing a telecom site. And this grid really is quite big, and it's designed so that each element is an individual service with a different process. And once you click inside, just as I showed you on the screenshot in the presentation, you would get a brief overview of what the service is about. The key deliverables are really what we get paid to do. So the outputs, what we send to the client, the activities to complete is to do with the milestones. So the step 1 might be conduct the audit or receive the submission. Step 2 might be conduct the audit. 3, work with the contractor to resolve any issues. And 4 is close out and update any tools necessary. And then the responsibility would be, if it's internal QA, so if we're internally checking our work, we'd have it there as the person who's in charge of governance. On the right, we utilize the different content areas in MethodGrid. So the process map, we would have a screenshot of the Visio process map there, and we do that for all the services. So a really quick, easy way to see what the stages in the workflow for each service. Supporting documents, generally this could include project execution plans if we provide services on that project, or it could be any specific technical guidance that anyone might need to see relating to that service. And then finally, experts area, we would put the team leaders, the managers, the real telecoms experts that we have dotted around all over the commission, people who you can go to ask a question if you're not sure. The next, so there's 3 grids on here. The first one I'll talk about now is the project matrix. This is, I know it sounds probably a lot cooler than it actually is, but believe me, it is actually quite cool. We have a grid essentially for each client. So as I mentioned, we're talking about 3 different clients here. And what we do is we map out the key bits of information that we need to know for each project. Apologies, for each client and all their projects. As I mentioned, we have 100 across 3 clients. So there's a lot of information that you might need to be able to get on a very quick note or very short notice. And the way that we've set it out is that this grid here example is for 3. Each theme would be 1 project, and across the stages we've sort of just categorized it in different sections of the type of information that we want to receive. So the first section is project overview, and we have just facts about the project that we want to see. And the reason why we put this in MethodGrid is because previously it was a project execution plan with 5 to 10 pages, and each document would be 1 individual project, and it would take forever to first of all find it, second of all read through it and try to find just the 1 bit of information that you need. It might just be a number, it might just be a name, whereas by putting it in individual elements, it's made it a lot easier to find that information. And essentially what we do is when a new project comes along, we clone this theme here, and we just replace all the information with what we need. So for example, if you need to know who's an approved contractor or designer working on site, hopefully the customer delivery manager will have filled this in. Of course, again, in this case, I can't show any real ones, but this is a sample of how we would do it. Moving across to the right, we've categorized the services into 3 work streams. So again, design, health and safety, and quality. And what we would do is we would put the percentages which we're required to work towards. So it might be that we might have to attend every single site that gets built for this project. So in which case we would mark it green and put it as 100%, or we might have to only attend 15% or 25%, in which case we have it color coded here with the label ledger. Makes it very easy to just quickly scan through a project and service and look for the information you need, as opposed to going to page 7 out of 10 on a document. And other information is SLAs, facts on contractors, who you'd expect to be on site, and generally just a document repository for technical guidance. As we mentioned, each project has its own unique scope of works, and knowing what our auditors and our colleagues have to work towards, it's very easy to just go into the technical documentation element and find everything that you might need.
And Arjun, what was the sort of feedback that you got from people actually using it?
It's been really useful, to be honest. What we did was, I think when it was just documentation and just a 5 to 10 page document, it became something that no one would ever really look at. Instead, it became a message someone who might know the answer and try and guess it. Yeah. Whereas with this, it's just 2-3 clicks. So we started getting less questions. If people didn't know what it was, we would just direct them towards this grid and say, please just have a look, and you'll find it within 30 seconds guaranteed. And that's really, that is what happened. So it has been useful. The key challenge is just keeping on top of it. So percentages and requirements can change all the time. It's not just a case of once you've onboarded a project, that's it, it's not going to change. So making sure that the data and the information is live is probably the most important part. But in terms of usability, it's been quite well received.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So moving on to the next grid, I'll hand over to Kit again.
Oh, you're on mute, Kit.
He's disappeared.
That I am. That I am. So yes, next part, reporting and data. So as Arjun said, primarily we sit within the PMO, and a large part of what the PMO does in SHQ Telecoms is reporting and capturing data requirements, and more importantly, getting the right reports both internally and externally with the right message to the clients. Now, on average, across a month, our team is producing about 80 to 90 different reports. Some of these are weekly, some of these are every other week, and some are sent out monthly. But as you'd imagine, one of the issues that we found when first looking at all of the reporting that we did was making sure that all of the reports were produced in a standard way, but more importantly, everyone in the team knew how to produce those reports. So this is where the kind of business continuity element of how it fitted in with our processes and just making sure that everything that we do is documented well, so that anyone in the team could potentially pick up that task and complete that task. So again, we were producing 80 reports on a monthly basis, and there was a heavy reliance on individuals within that team to be able to complete certain reports. So the reason we developed the reporting and data matrix was to clearly outline what needed to be done for that task, who the distribution list would be, who the primary stakeholder was within our client, again, whether that be internal or external, but also just gather as much information and put it into one place as possible, so that anyone can see, say you're a new starter within our team, you could see the reason as to why this report was required, and what the output looks like. It also showed a detailed guide step by step on how to complete that task, so that the person who created the tool, created the report, had no worries of booking a week's leave whenever they wanted. The team could continue to fulfill the deliverables of what we were needing to do. So what Arjun is sharing here, again, we've structured it on our weekly, what goes out first week, second week, third week, fourth week of the month. We do a variety of reporting, whether it be the standard Excel and putting it into a PowerPoint presentation, or a pack to whoever, or Power BI. So one thing that we have been moving towards is creating Power BI reports, and with that, it's just making sure there's a detailed guide on how those reports are made. So Arjun, could you just open up an example? I don't know if there is an example that we could put
Is there any
up just
particular
now.
one that we could open up?
No, not. I think potentially the QA dashboard, potentially. So just as an example, it highlights what the report details are, who the report owners are internally within our organization, how often it goes out, when it goes out, who it goes out to, the file format that it goes out in, and then it will outline the step-by-step guides that we need to do to complete that task. And the other part is just that it links to our other systems. Like I mentioned before, the integration between MS Teams, SharePoint, the ability to put in a hyperlink to where the location is within our SharePoint site, so that you can go get the files, you can see previous reports that were sent out. It allows you to connect all those places into one, rather than potentially saving the bookmark or the hyperlink on your dashboard. So as a team, it's allowed us to, I think, work smarter, but also it's kind of bridged gaps that certain people within our team will have different skill sets on different tools, but it's allowed us to bridge that gap and kind of work better as an outfit, learn new skills, and learn new tricks to just work better as a team. What came out the back of a reporting and data matrix, we then moved on to our requirements capture. So Arjun's probably fed up with me saying this, but for me, any project or any sort of requirement that you're looking at needs a good baseline. So an understanding of why we are looking at that requirement, and more importantly, getting some detail on what the need was, what the priorities were for that task, and more importantly, just again, allowing that business continuity. So for example, if one person were to move on and another person were to take that role, why are they doing this? What is the reasons as to why we're producing this report or we're completing this process or task? And one thing that we wanted to make sure that we got well defined and set up properly was a detailed requirements capture, and Method Grid allowed us to complete this. So this one wasn't necessarily as creating a standalone element, and this is how it's done. It allowed us to implement a kind of stage-by-stage process on one, the capture of the requirement, getting the detail from the primary stakeholder, but also show the steps of that requirement going through, I guess, almost its own project life cycle. So once the requirement's captured, putting a review with the stakeholders that might have a say on that requirement, and then going through the different, I guess, stages of development. And that's, I guess, the evolution for us with Method Grid. It started off primarily being that knowledge management store, the ability to document processes. But as we became more familiar with it and we were happy with the information being stored with the processes, it was about building those, I guess, the delivery life cycle of moving one part from A to C, and some controls around it. So building the requirements process, so using standard industry practice and methodologies that are well known, like the Moscow prioritization, we were able to create a template so that we weren't playing necessarily Chinese whispers over phones, going back and forth on requirements. We could get that specific word and detail down on paper of what the requirement was. It would allow the person to genuinely think about the need and the task and what it was there to go and fix. And from that, we've just genuinely had more meaningful requirements, and it's just been able to allow us to produce exactly what's needed. So again, how has Method Grid helped? Over, let's say, producing this in a PDF. I think it's the ability of having all of that information again in one element, being able to link multiple documents and multiple sources to that one place, but also live that whole process from start to finish. So you see where it's at with the initial capture, and then moving through the life cycle of the work being implemented and completed. Okay.
Right, I think we're running a little bit over time, so I'm going to try and speed run the next one.
Yeah.
Risks and issues. So this one is quite an important one, and it usually has quite a senior audience. But essentially, we created a grid that has overhauled the way that we address business risks and issues. And we feel that having a grid has promoted a healthy discussion, and it's really just enabled us to review risks and issues in a lot more efficient manner, as opposed to a classic Excel tracker that goes on for 200 rows, and you've got conditional formatting and tiny cells with lots of information that you have to open up and close again. So having it in a grid really made it so that you can review all your risks and issues in a very quick way, and you can narrow your focus using the labels or by having it in a very high impact or high severity area of the grid. I'll just open it up again now. Again, we've had to reduce a lot of the wording just so we can show it, but essentially the themes and stages follow or visualize the impact and probability model that you traditionally see with risks and issues. So the most important ones, or the ones that you really want to talk about the most, go in the top left, and as you go down, you get to the very low ones. And what we have here is we have templates on the right. So every time a new risk has been addressed or raised, we would duplicate this element and fill out everything. I believe MethodGrid might have a example of risks and issues that's very similar to this. We did kind of rip it off, but tried to make it a little bit more of our own. And yes, this is it really. What we do is we bring this up every 2 weeks on a recurring meeting. But what we would expect is that in between the meetings, so in the 2-week gap in between, that everyone is putting updates in. So as they're trying to mitigate or manage any risks or issues, they are updating the elements as they go on. And then at the meeting 2 weeks later, it's discussed and talked about and then potentially closed out if necessary.
Okay. Sorry, Arjun, with that example, do you assign users and people to those risks and their actions?
We do, yes. So the reason why there's no pictures on here is just because we didn't want to destroy the original grid, so we cloned it, and as a result, all the assignees were removed. But generally, what you'd see is that you'd have people's faces against each one, as well as individual actions on a action by action basis. So just because one person is the owner of the risk or responsible for managing the risk does not mean that all these actions are assigned to them. It could be individual people that they're collaborating with to work to get it done. And updates really is the content area that gets quite full because everyone's putting in little comments as you go along throughout the week. And finally, the last grid that we want to talk about is our strategy grid, but also Kit will go on to talk about what we're looking forward to seeing the most from MethodGrid in the future.
Yes, so as mentioned before, with the PMO, and the PMO has been relatively new with the growth of this commission. So 2 years ago, it was established from being a data and reporting team to a PMO where we would focus on process improvement and minor initiatives and projects. Alongside that has been the kind of development of the PMO from a project management perspective. So implementing project methodologies, implementing best practice on how to deliver a project, engage with our stakeholders, general communication. Now, MethodGrid has played a massive part in terms of developing the team's understanding of project management and I guess defining a methodology for us to work towards. So in the industry, obviously we have many different methodologies. You have your waterfall approach, or you have an agile approach. And because we were coming from primarily a kind of tech background in the production of reporting and data, we chose to implement a very basic agile approach initially that would allow us to capture our work, but just see what stage it was in within our delivery. So within MethodGrid, it allowed us to just create a very basic Kanban board. And off the back of that, we've been able to have visibility on what is being worked on, who's it being worked on by, who the owner of that task is. And just going on from Pip's question before, a lot of the grids that you have seen today, they would have had someone assigned to it. So the processes would have had an owner assigned to it, but just how we've demonstrated it in this talk, the owner has been taken away during the kind of cloning process. But each of these elements would have had an owner to that task, and then the actions within them would have been assigned to multiple people within our team. But what it's primarily done is kind of driven the team to look at the delivery of a job. So being able to assign a date, work towards that date and make sure it's delivered for the client. rather than purely focusing on the output of we produce this report at the end of each week, we've been able to kind of work on different initiatives and apply a different mode of thought to those initiatives. So how does that move into what we're excited for next? So one thing that we're looking forward to within the development of Method Grid is how Gantt can play a part in our delivery. So being able to put dependencies, being able to link projects to one another that have significance to one another, I think will only help how we are delivering our projects, but more importantly, understand what elements have parts to play with one another. And it would just improve our team as a project management office, and focus on the delivery and ensuring a good delivery and a delivery that's on time to all of our clients across the board. What else are we excited for? So we've spoken a lot about how we've captured our process within Elements, captured the documentation. We've touched on business continuity, and we've kind of touched on continual improvement. Now, as an organization, our primary responsibility is assurance and auditing. Now, one thing a lot of businesses tend to do is we create a process, and we tend to revisit that process when we need to have it updated for some certain reason, whether that be an audit or whatever it may be. But what we're trying to achieve is the ability to constantly review and make sure that our processes and documents are all up to date and regularly reviewed. So they're signed off on 3-month, 6-month, 12-month basis, whatever it may be, but the functionality built in with the owner and the due dates assigned within Method Grid. And again, when you look at the whole digital suite that people have out there, having all of that information stored within one tile in one grid within Method Grid, rather than looking through multiple folders and tying all of that information together within a SharePoint or an MS Teams structure, whichever it may be, only shows efficiency. So having the ability to just click on that element and find everything just makes that whole process easier and quicker. So yeah, that's what we're looking forward to next.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, just open up to the floor really. If there's any questions that you guys may have, we'd be really interested to hear them. But I mean, first of all, Arjun, Kit, thanks for obviously preparing everything and taking us through that. It was absolutely fantastic, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any sort of future grids that you guys are thinking about building?
I think what we really want to focus on is primarily what Kit just talked about. It's not necessarily future grids, but using the new features to enhance the grids that we already have. So Gantt and auditing would just improve the functionality we currently have. So I think future grids isn't really at the forefront of our mind, but making what we have better really is.
Yep. It's using more of the functionality within Method Grid to kind of better use how we are currently using Method Grid. So key things, obviously making the right people assigned to the right task, but also the reporting functionality that you have within Method Grid, putting that level of accountability on individuals to kind of deliver the tasks within the timeframes, etc. So I think we're in a window now of just kind of refining how we use Method Grid with the functionality that's there, and getting ourselves ready for the new toolkits that you're going to be putting in place soon.
Yeah. Cool. I got a question from Alistair. So did Method Grid help with requirements capture, or do you have a well-defined sort of professional services product offering for requirements? That's probably more for us to answer. In terms of requirements capture, yeah, you can, within our platform, you can template how you want specific elements to be produced. And depending on what type of best practice you want to use, whether you want to go user stories or epics, features, user stories, we've got sort of templates of best practice that you can accelerate and use that process. Or if you're in the more traditional requirement statement, we just help clients engineer templates for that. But yes, we've got quite a lot of collateral in terms of how to manage requirements. And in some ways, it's born by the fact that we use MethodGrid as the fundamental tool for managing the platform in terms of what features, requirements we use for that. One question from Andrew. So, Kit and Arjun aware that Oxford Brookes, they use MS Project tool also with some of their key consultants working on larger construction projects. I think I think on that, Kit, I think we're trying to set up the session for you guys to meet OBU, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it depends on the kind of scale of the project, and I think that's why we're excited about the kind of grid element, the Gantt element within MethodGrid. So I've used Microsoft Project and I've used a Primavera P6, but obviously they're not always tailorable to certain sizes of project. So when we're looking at small initiatives such as process improvement or the creation of a new report or dashboard for a client, we found that controlling that within MethodGrid is a lot easier than necessarily creating an entire let's say waterfall approach in MS Project. So it's I think for the task that we deal with, I think it's the kind of better solution for us going forward.
In terms of a Gantt sample, I think it's currently in development. We've got I think, Kit, you've seen the prototype, haven't you? I think Jody, head of product, has taken you through that. Andrew, I'll see if we can get something to you that sort of shows the concept of how it's going to actually look and feel within MethodGrid. Some other use cases where schedule is required is, sometimes clients will produce pre-written MSP files that are part of the project plan, so it just helps accelerate. You're not starting from scratch building a plan. It's kind of pre-written templates that you can build and link to elements is one concept, especially larger programs. But for 6-9 month projects, being able to plan and use that within MethodGrid is a concept. Being able to switch between grid and then schedule is we think is uniquely powerful for helping teams that want to use it in delivery. Any other questions from the group? Tom, one from Tom. The joy of the tool is always sparks ideas, how you improve and how you're delivering. Like the way you're using the grid. I like the way you've used the grid to give a portfolio view and a quick way of finding some key projects. Oh, sorry, Tom, I'm just trying. What project is? I think that's just a positive praise for you two, what you've done.
Oh, thank you. I think one of the things that we found really good about MethodGrid is just you can really just build anything that's on your mind. So building, I think we came through a stage in the commission where we had so many requests to do things and we just couldn't keep a track of, I forgot what they asked for, or did we make enough notes? And then we just thought, let's just have something where we can document all the requirements. And then our first instinct was, let's just go to MethodGrid and see if we can build it. And there was no real right answer. We just went through a couple of trials and thought, let's just build a template where we have enough space. So let's think about what information we need, and let's create the space for that information to be documented, and let's just put it all together in a Kanban board, for example. So having MethodGrid and it really does enable you to just be as creative as you'd like and come up with things that you might not expect, as long as you just give it 5 or 10 minutes to mess around with and play with, really.
Yeah, I think giving the teams the ability to build their own process. I mean, I think probably what I love most about the platform is, you start with a blank grid and you can build whatever content, what the element wants to look like. It probably opens us up to so many different use cases that we probably never even imagined when we first built the platform. And I think it is helping teams be a lot more creative and innovative in terms of solving problems.
Definitely.
Yeah. Right. Well, I'll pause there, and in terms of questions, obviously, guys, just to wrap up, Arjun, Kit, just on our behalf, just thank you so much for the summit that you did before December that we did with the development team. They really enjoyed it, and we were really astounded with sort of the creative spirit of how you used the platform. But thank you for your time and building the deck and the contribution to that. So thank you so much for your time. Just a signpost as we wrap up, guys. The next one is with Lace Partners, and this is probably much more on consulting focus, which is how you translate your service offering that you offer clients into playbooks that your consultants can actually deliver. Fantastic application what they've done at Lace Partners. We're obviously really keen to play that back and get feedback on that. And then just finally, before we wrap up, we run our senior user forum twice a year. We did the last one, I think it was in September. And it's made up of sort of senior P3M leadership represented across our core AEC client base. And some of these individuals have helped us shape this platform from day one, but also they continually invest and help us validate and shape our roadmap. We keep it fairly key on clients, but there are a few places we have available this year, and we did want to see if there were a few other interested parties within the industry. You might not be a Method Grid client, so if you're interested, it's a full day in Bath on the 20th of April. We do a social in the evening with a few drinks, but it's covers obviously a few things about our product, where we want to take it, but also really good networking session, and we have got a few really let's say quite interesting topics. We're doing Arup are going to attend and give us an overview of how they've built their advisory services playbook and how they're going to scale that and roll that out to sort of 1,000 users this year, and cover the business change element of that. So some real interesting topics. So if you're interested in want to know a bit more about connected assurance, please just reach out to me and try and do it in less than 5 minutes. But also, if you're interested and would have got the opportunity to come, we'd be delighted to host you at the Senior User Forum. So please reach out to either myself or Dom after the call, and we'll follow that up. But finally, just as a wrap up, Kit, Arjun, once again, thanks very much. And guys, I hope you found this really useful. And please, reach out if you'd like to know more.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, that's right. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right. On that note, cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Cheers all.